Hello, this is David Brim, and I'm the founder of Orlando Entrepreneurs. We are the hub for Orlando entrepreneurship, and our mission is to connect, cultivate, and celebrate our local entrepreneurs. We bring together our local entrepreneurial ecosystem to help impact our entrepreneurs, their companies, and our local economy. Learn more at orlandoentrepreneurs.org. Now over to Josh Wilson to get forward with our show.
Good day, fellow entrepreneurs in Orlando. Welcome to the Orlando Entrepreneur Show. My name is Josh, and I'm your host. I'm a fellow entrepreneur with you in the trenches, building great businesses. We are the risk takers of the world, creating opportunities and creating a future for ourselves and for other people. Now, I'm really excited to have on the show a very well-known CEO here in Orlando who's built an incredible business and who has become the thought leader in his specific industry, which we will unravel together on this show. So ladies and gentlemen, fellow entrepreneurs, welcome Richard Milam to the show. He's the CEO of EnableSoft. Richard, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Josh.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a little insight at what EnableSoft is for the audience?
EnableSoft obviously is a software company that created over 23 years ago technology that was originally intended to help financial institutions move data when they were acquiring other institutions, and it was they were relegated to doing it manually because of the time frame that was demanded because of the all the S&Ls were being divested by the Resolution Trust Corporation. So this technology has been curated over the years by us, marketed into not only financial institutions but all industries essentially. And the technology is now recognized as a driving force, and not just us, but the other companies in the world that are doing it as well, as a driving force to move artificial intelligence into business. It's called Robotic Process Automation. It's software that essentially emulates a human being to do computer processes interacting with software that operates other software, if you will. And our technology, we believe, is the leader in time to first value. We've actually moved the efficiency needle in an entire industry, and we can document that in banking. We are recognized by major consultants like Gartner as a pure RPA vendor, and we're a tech firm in the Orlando area that's Inc. 5000 type growth.
Wow. So that is incredible. Now, you started this 23 years ago. So let's go back to 1995 when you started this company. Could you give us a little insight as to how you got started and how you started this incredible business, what it grew to be today?
Well, I believe that the soul of business is to find a need and fill it, serve a customer, create a job, and generate wealth. And my background was that I was nuclear trained in the United States Nuclear Navy on submarines, and I studied computer science in college. And I worked for the guy that invented the automated teller machine, so I did those types of projects like at Publix and Sunbank. I was involved in those, putting those systems in, and then I sold banking software for a while. And then I found myself, between career, I was in my, mid-30s, in between career and choices, and the opportunity was put before me to go out and help a banker help these banks move the data. All the things that I had learned and had been developed expertise in kind of equipped me to launch into an entrepreneurial adventure, which became EnableSoft. So this idea was kind of a gift from God, if you will, and I took it, and I think we're also protected in that if we knew all the things in advance that were going to be the hurdles we had to get over. We had never done it. I'm certainly in that category. But here I am today. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So working, from working on submarines to helping people get cash back at automatic teller machines or ATMs. From there, you saw kind of a gap in the marketplace, and you were between opportunities and between jobs, and you said, I might as well start my own business, right? What did that look like? Where were you at in terms of family? Where were you in terms of what other options did you have in front of you?
Well, that's a good question. So I go from a six-figure plus income with a 1-year-old child, and my wife had given up her teaching job to stay home with our child, and now I'm sitting in a shared office with my office and boxes behind me, a telephone. It's me and a telephone. I got a programmer working out of his house, and I maybe have a couple customers, and I'm thinking, what did I just do? That was kind of what it looked like.
Wow. What did your wife say to this? So you have a 1-year-old. You left a six-figure job in 1995, so this was pretty significant to start up a business. What did your wife say to this? Because she just quit her job as a teacher to be a stay-home mom.
Well, she didn't say much, but I think if she did say something, she would have said, "Are you kidding me?" I gave her lots of assurances. I don't think she knew all the details of what the cost and the investment were going to be. I think it definitely took at least 3 times what I thought had I laid out in a plan of what it was going to take financially. I'd work all day, come home, spend some time with my daughter, and then go back in the office and work another 4 or 5 hours at the house. So I was working a lot and looking for ways to find business. So it occurred to me that, since I had the opportunity to go travel and call on customers, I might as well take the family and make a vacation of it. So I rented a Lincoln Town car, got me one of those phones that were the size of 2 bricks, and they sat in the back seat and played games while I drove and set up appointments. I actually called on banks we'd had actually done conversions with before we had the technology, showed them the technology. I think I called on about 15 banks between Florida and Illinois, and I came back with almost 10 orders. So that's I knew I was really in business, because you're not really in business till you have a customer that's responding to invoices.
Wow. Yeah. So let's go. Let's stay back in time. Let's go into the Lincoln Town Car with you and your family, and your briefcase phone, the big phones that my dad used to have one of these. These were incredible. And you're cold calling on banks. Who were you? What was your script? What did you talk to them about? Who were you talking to at these banks?
Well, again, as I mentioned, fortunately, they were not cold; they were warm, because I had worked with them. We'd actually done conversions for them, and they took the meeting because of the relationship. I would say that they wouldn't. They'll take the meeting because of the relationship. They won't do business because of the relationship. There has to be value, and so I knew I had created something of value that didn't exist before. Nobody knew this kind of thing was possible. Nobody knew that you could automate these manual processes, which are everywhere in business, in the back room, and people just kind of dealt with it, or they didn't, and they missed opportunities to get new business, or they missed opportunities to respond to regulatory requirements in a timely manner and suffered the fees. So just, was introducing something to the market that didn't exist before, which you would think is, well, that's really cool. Well, it is, but it's hard to educate people. And when you create something that never existed before, that's where the word innovation comes from. Don't expect everybody to buy it right away, because they're not. They're going to look for social proof that you've really got something, and it took a while to get there. We have over 500 plus financial institutions using technology today, including 5 of the biggest, 3rd of the largest 1,000, and half of the top 100 performing financial.
Wow. Do you guys still travel around together and make a road trip out of these sales calls now?
Well, my marriage didn't survive the first part of the business, first 10 years of the business. My wife now and I do, and we enjoy it. We do some trade shows together, and we do some business pleasure traveling together, and it's really something we enjoy.
Oh, that's awesome. So this business has expanded 23 years. So you've seen ups and downs in the market, in the financial industry. Like, talk to us about being an entrepreneur, being a CEO of a booming company. What did it look like through these different ups and downs of the economy?
Well, the worst one was 9/11. I had to cut everybody's salary to keep people employed. We didn't know what the future like. It looks like you never really do, but that was rough. But we got through that. I remember taking a business flight on an almost empty jet after 9/11 out to California, a commercial jet, and it was eerie. But I got out there and I spoke to a group of bankers and shared with them that the jet was almost empty, but I was confident that things would be back into a normal state in a very short period of time, and I was right. It took a few months. The worst time, because listen, here's the deal. You could survive the economic ups and downs most of the time if you're just using reasonable, common sense, good practice business approaches. Yeah, don't get too leveraged. Have good people that are loyal, and treat them well, and take care of your customers, invest in your product, and those things will, you'll be the one that survives when everybody else gets thinned out. If you're reasonable on those, it's the things you do to yourself that you almost don't survive, and that was the worst one. I had struggling to figure out how to grow without taking on other outside investment, and I got, a long story short, I got in a situation where I spent a lot of money on banner advertising, and the product was needed more R&D to keep up with the technology that was changing, and basically got in a situation where I ended up having to lay off 3/4 of the company. And I moved out of my corner office into a cubicle, and I ran all the office, I did all the sales. My key people started working on the product, and I think I had one support person, and didn't know if we were going to survive that. 18 months later, we had paid off all the debt. The product was way better, and we were growing again, but that was terrifying. And luckily, I had some consulting advice and I had some plans that I could implement to get through that. But it's the things we do to ourselves by, pushing a bad position or running out of money, and that's one of Red Scott, the guy who created Snapper Mower and Pier 1 imports. He has this list of rules that I got when I was in Vistage, and the first rule on the list is never run out of cash. And the second rule is cash isn't cash until it's cash. Receivables aren't cash. Building assets aren't cash. Only cash is cash, and never run out.
Oh, that is really good input. So how you said it was a terrifying time. You've gone through a few of these, like where the economy was really tough. How did you get through it yourself? Because I mean, it's hard firing people. It's hard turning a company around, like when the industry itself is hurting. Like, how did you personally get through this?
A lot of prayer, a lot of optimism, and a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. It's really it's a faith thing. It is doing enough of the right things, and having a good team that stays with you, that trusts you. Trust is a huge big deal, and a loyal customer base that appreciates what you're doing for them and trusts you to continue to do the right thing by them.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Did you, has there ever been a time, or can you maybe share a time that maybe you were thinking about throwing in the towel and quitting and just saying, to heck with this all?
Oh yeah, I could tell you in the early days when I'm, running around all over the country, and really struggling financially. My one of my family members, who I respect, said, "Why don't you just give it up and get a job? What are you doing all this for?" And I get, part of me got a little mad about that, and part of me went, "Well, maybe I should." And I think that's a normal human thing to go through, and I think you should be evaluating that. But unless you're willing to put it all on the line, you're probably not an entrepreneur. You're probably not going to be successful. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Most entrepreneurs end up mortgaging their assets and times 2 or 3. And it's just the way of it. It's high risk. And that's why the wealth they create is well earned. And along the way, they help others create wealth by being employed and providing health insurance and helping people pay for houses and families. Most problem in the workforce is unemployment or underemployment. So when you build something and you create opportunities for employment, you're really serving the society.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, so I have so many questions. So let's give the audience a view at what where your company is now in terms of size or employees. You mentioned Inc. 5000 growth. That's really awesome. How many employees do you have, or could you give me some indication about how big your company is now?
Yeah, we have about 20. We have 20 employees, and our our revenue per employee is probably about $250,000, which is a good number, a good metric. There's some other, sources of income, but we're software as a service, so our customers pay us every year. We have to earn their business again, and we're in what's called probably early second stage of growth, which means we're at a point where me being the sole owner of the company and putting my assets in it is not enough to fuel the growth that's required to stay in the game and compete with the other companies that are doing this robotic stuff. So we're at a place where we've got to figure out what our second story is. And our second story is, okay, so what do we do to fund the company going forward? How much of it do we give up? How much of it do we keep, if any? And those are the decisions we're facing. And those are always what's the best word? Those are always conditioned by what's the best thing for our team, our stakeholders, being the employees, and our customers.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for sharing this. Early second stage. How do you approach that? So people who are as people are listening in who might be a little earlier than you guys are, how would you recommend that they approach the situation that you're going through, and how are you approaching it? Like, what do you think your next step is?
Well, I put together the team to help me make those decisions internally and externally. So I've got an integrator who you would call him a chief operating officer, and who has experience and has done this before. My leadership team is that head up development and building business partnerships and direct sales services are always have my ear in terms of what the needs are, where we could, if we brought more money in and resources, where we would put them and where we would have the most impact. And so the internal team and then the external team. So I've been meeting with groups of other CEOs for the last 12 years at least, in groups like Vistage or CEO Nexus, where I'm always getting input and seeing other people's work through these problems, and we work on each other's problems together, because people in those groups are selected because they don't compete with each other necessarily. And whether you're in software or manufacturing or higher education, the problems are always really the same. They're people, funding, and strategy, and so that has given me encouragement and resources to figure out and work through those problems. I read a lot. I've read a lot of books on business as well as business strategy. So, that I'm very clear at this point about what I need to do and how I'm going to go about it. It is just a process we have to operate. And I've got the people to help me do that.
So you mentioned books. I love talking about books. What kind of books would you recommend for entrepreneurs out there who are looking to build a software company, or to build any business, really?
Okay, so the most impactful book right now, and there's not a lot new in it. These ideas, Vern Harnish had created a lot of this information. He was he's I think he writes for Forbes, not Forbes, but one of the business magazines. And then there's a book that came out called Traction, which is it outlines what's called an entrepreneurial operating system. And there's a companion book called Get a Grip, which is a parable on how a fictional company implements that. That's probably been the most transformative book in the last few years. I love Good to Great, and all Jim Collins's books have really helped me understand business strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy, I think, is a good book for trying to figure out how to find a market opportunity where there's not a lot of competition to deal with. And those would be kind of the main ones that I would recommend.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Gino's book, the book called Traction. He talks about in the book, he talks about a visionary and an integrator. Which one are you? Are you the visionary or the integrator?
I'm clearly the visionary.
All right. So
although I've played an integrator on TV, I know I have been an integrator, but it was because I had to. I didn't have one. Now we have one.
Awesome.
And good integrators are hard to find.
They are hard to find. So for the audience listening in, in the book, it's a really great book. Talks about visionary and integrator. Visionary has all the ideas and has the drive, the passion to to bring the people together. The integrator is like, okay, how are we going to make this work, right? So you could take a look at the book and really dive into this. But Richard's saying that he's the visionary, and I'm going to ask him some questions about the visionary role. So in terms of the visionary role, you're the CEO, the driving force for the company, casting vision, bringing people together. What are some of the weaknesses that most visionaries or that you have in that role?
Yeah, the biggest weakness is the tendency to stick the nose under the tent and get in everybody's business and want to come back and grab things and control them.
Wow.
It's followed closely by bringing too much, going to conferences and bringing too many ideas back and telling the integrator he's got to implement them.
Yeah. So how do you manage that? Because I'm a visionary too. I have a lot of ideas, and I work with a lot of visionaries, being entrepreneurs. What is your advice to other visionaries out there to be successful?
Yeah, another book, Gino Wackman, Rocket Fuel, which is a treatise on the interplay of the visionary and the integrator. Realize that there's no great companies that ever existed without the two of them. Think of McDonald's, Ray Kroc, and the other guy, I think his name was Miller. So if you really want to get past the growth stage you're at, you're going to have to find a visionary integrator relationship to work in, and then understand what you're supposed to do and what your bad behaviors are, and be cognizant of it, and then meet regularly with your integrator or visionary so that you guys or guys and gals or whatever they are keep short accounts, so to speak, on the relational debt, so that issues get resolved and so that you're communicating and work things out and don't let them linger.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Take me to a time, Richard, where you had a wahoo moment in your business, or that, like you were sitting in there, something happened and like your heart leaped with joy and you felt on fire. Do you recall one of these moments, or a few moments?
Wow. There's been so many. Well, I think when the customer stories come through, and you realize you've created something basically out of nothing that now is critical to an organization's success. I remember one time, it's a fairly large bank in Maryland. I won't mention their name, but they were $10 billion in assets, and they took and they used to have, the way it worked in banks at one time in the past, is they had lots of programmers and they wrote their own systems, and that was quite onerous and expensive. And integrated banking software came along, and this bank bought an integrated package banking software system, And I remember they were customers of ours. And I remember the day when the CIO told me, he said, we could never have implemented and made this package software work without your software. And that was wow, we've really got something here. Because it's a good thing for them to have package software. They should be in the banking business, not the software development business. But, you know, the package software business by nature has to, you know, kind of define certain ways things are going to be done, and they can't do it all for everybody. But our technology bridged the gap. Our technology is kind of the, you know, we call it the automated employee, but it enables them to use that integrated system and then link it up with the other systems they need and create the processes they need to actually run their organization. Another one is featured in a white paper you can get on our website. United Bank and Trust in Lincoln, Nebraska. They grew their bank 3 times its size and held deposit operations costs constant because of our technology. So, and then I will tell you one more. We've been in a large credit card processor. I can't name them for more than 12 years. They were using our technology before there was such a thing called Robotic Process Automation. They now have a Robotic Process Automation department, and they've hired some of our competition to run their processes because our competition was ready to handle large scale operations before we were. We were ready to handle it now. But when they need to have something done really fast, like they've got to reissue a bunch of business credit cards, they use us because the other system takes 3 to 6 months to implement, and something they need to implement in 3 to 6 hours. They use us. So those are some wahoo moments.
Awesome. So banks or a credit card company hired your competition, but they still call you in to do the heavy lifting. That's awesome. It must make you feel good.
Yeah, it does. It's affirming.
Cool. So what does, as a CEO of a company that's growing 20 employees, you guys have a very, bright future and a growth trajectory that, I'm really excited for you guys. What does the life of a CEO at the stage, the early second stage, what you're sharing, what does the lifestyle or life of a CEO look like for those who are starting their businesses? What could they look forward to?
Well, you have some flexibility in your schedule and in your time for recreation, but it's still a lot of work. As long as you're in the business, you're working in it, but you're also taking time to work on the business in terms of meeting with the CEO roundtable groups I talked about, and when you get to second stage as a CEO, it's more about what you don't do than what you do. There's a very, very few times, if you've got the right team, that you should be in there doing much of anything in the day-to-day. For example, right now I'm working on PR. That's why I've got time to do this blog with you, which is great, Josh. I've worked on I was interviewed for an article I just ran in an American Banker this week, and several other articles, one in Read It Quick piece on one of our customers. So my value add is I go to conferences and meet with groups of people that include our competition to talk about what's going on in the industry, so I can bring that kind of perspective back, and then work on bolstering our brand through PR, and then I'm very involved in the key processes of corporate development where we are figuring out what our next move is.
Awesome. So, Richard, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I probably should have asked you, or is there anything that you'd really like to dive deeper into for the audience as we near the end of our conversation?
No, Josh, I think you've really covered all the bases.
Cool.
And I've got to say probably more than I should have, but that's always fun.
Well, I love these conversations. I love your honesty, and I love just you being an open book, and I just appreciate your approach. Before I hit record, and this is for the audience so they could hear in, sometimes the pre-calls are really good, and I'd like to bring them into the actual call. But I said, what is your main motive for coming on the show? And you told me that you really want to encourage entrepreneurs and encourage the community, because the entrepreneurs are the job creators, the risk takers, the people who create the future. And you shared that with me before the show, and it really inspired me. So, I just want to say thank you for this time investment, because I know your time is very valuable, and thank you for the encouragement to this community. If there were a few pieces of lasting golden nuggets of wisdom that you want to pass on the audience before you say goodbye, what are some pieces of advice, wisdom, that you would give to the audience?
Well, weigh your motives, why you're doing it. If you're just doing it for the money, you're not going to ever be fulfilled, because as Rockefeller said, was asked how much is enough, he always said a little more. Weigh your motives, do it for the right reasons. Try not to leave anybody behind, especially your family. And, finish well. Finish the job you start, and I believe you'll be blessed in it.
Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you for coming on the show and for sharing your entrepreneurial journey, starting in a town car, driving around and with your family on sales, and now being on trade shows and going around and being the face and the PR, the microphone of your company, taking and evolving into a wonderful CEO. But thank you for letting us behind the scenes and learn from you and with you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow entrepreneurs, you heard a really awesome story from Richard, the CEO of EnableSoft. Just share how he got started, some of the hurdles, some of the adventures that he's had, and what the role is of a CEO of a growing company. What do they do? So you heard it here on Orlando Entrepreneurs, and I just encourage you to go take a look at EnableSoft and see what Richard's got going on over there. Actually, that's a good question, Richard. If someone wants to find out more about you or your business, where could people go to find that?
They can go to EnableSoft.com, EnableSoft.com. They can call me at my office at 407-233-2616, or email me at rmilam@EnableSoft.com.
Wow. Awesome. Well, Richard, thanks for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening in. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Orlando Entrepreneurs with Mr. Richard. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you on the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for listening in on today's episode. If you would like to be a guest on the show or start a conversation with me, Josh, your host, send me an email to josh@orlandoentrepreneurs.org. You can also find out more information on Orlando's entrepreneurial ecosystem, discover resources to help you start and grow your business, and subscribe to future shows by visiting www.orlandoentrepreneurs.org.